This programme is brought to you by Hunt's Original, fishing accessories designed to enhance your presentation.
Well, welcome to On the Bank, and if you watch the programme regularly, you're probably used to seeing Mr. Hughes and I fishing against each other. Now, for something completely different, because he and I are teaming up, and we're fishing in the Broadlands Grayling Classic. We're an hour or so before the start, and as you're probably aware, my colleague, Mr. Hughes, is a highly decorated carp angler, which when you're fly fishing for grayling isn't really a vast amount of use. So the other day, before the competition got underway in anger, I brought him down to the river to throw him in and see if he could get to grips with the techniques needed. But you can see that Mr. Hughes certainly looks the part. Very good, Hughesy. So,
camo though.
Yes, I know, there is a bit of carp, and in fact, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because one of the things I want to talk to you a bit about is crossover.
Yep.
Now, what gives me hope for this, I know you've never done this sort of fishing before, and one of the keys this weekend is that you and I are competitive. We've got a field of some very, very good anglers.
Yep.
So we're up against them. It's a pairs match, you and I fishing together. I know people are used to seeing us fish apart, and in fact against each other, but it'll be nice to be able to fish as a team for one thing. So what I want to do is just have a quick run through the gear that we're going to be using so that you understand it. Now, I talk about crossover.
Yep.
Firstly, this is very, very similar to lure fishing, in fact drop shotting.
Which is good.
Yeah, which you do a fair bit of on the canals.
Yep.
The other thing it's really similar to is stick float fishing.
Yep.
So both of those things I know you're good at, so I think that you're going to be all right. You'll get this quite quickly. Okay. Now, it's not fly fishing as in aerialising loads of line.
Yep.
In fact, let's just have a look at the setup. So here we have 10-foot rod. This is a 3-weight.
Yep.
And what I've tied onto the end of your fly line is a French leader. Okay. So basically what that is a tapered monofilament leader. It starts at about 0.5 and goes all the way down to about 0.2. Okay. So on the end of that, this is what you use for your indication. So on the end of your French leader, what we've done is we've tied on a piece of mono. Now this is your indicator. Essentially, this is your stick float. It's just a length of brightly coloured, specifically made, monofilament line, which is pink and yellow. I've found that this colour is really good. It gives you a good sight. You can get orange coloured ones, all sorts of different ones. This particular one, I think, really works well in these conditions. Yeah. And further down, you've got the business end, if you like. This is your fishing line. So we've got 4-pound fluorocarbon. We're going to fish with 2 flies to begin with. The competition allows us to fish 3, and that's fairly standard in competition fishing. But we're going to fish 2, partly because
we want to give everybody else a fighting chance.
Well,
to be
there
fair.
is
33% less. That's an excuse already.
It is, but in terms of presentation, these fish are going to get some pressure the next few days, and the more flies they see, the more they spook. So 2 flies actually helps us to reduce the potential for spooking.
Yep. Okay.
So we've got 2 flies on our cast. The point fly is the heaviest one in this instance. That takes everything down. And here's your dropper, which is a couple of inches long that you've tied in. Again, everything's about 18 inches apart, 50 centimetres roughly. There's your dropper, another fly, they're just there.
Okay.
Now what we're going to do, we're going to go upstream in a minute, and I'm going to throw you in the river in the nicest possible way. The bit up there that we're going to fish, John Hall calls Grayling Alley.
Right.
So
Don't
that
put any
gives us
pressure
hope,
on me immediately,
doesn't it? No, absolutely. But there are some fish in there.
Good.
Now the other thing is this weekend is about a friendly competition. I know carp fishing's got its own kind of internal community, lots of people enjoying each other's company. It's a very social thing. Fly fishing is even more so. In fact, we call it a bit of a brotherhood.
Right.
So, in that respect, I have to give you something.
Oh.
This is the cap that designates the fly casting brotherhood. And Hughesy,
Wow.
welcome to the brotherhood.
I'm in. I actually feel honoured. Thank you ever so much. Let's go.
So the tactic tactics here are to try and cover as much of the water as we can, and what I tend to do is break it down into almost a clock face or a cone, and basically make your way up the river and try and fish a whole arc of the river. And that way you experience all the different lies. So you'll get near side cover, you'll get the run down the middle, you'll get the kind of the slacks off the back of the trees and things like that. One of the things we always look for in grayling fishing is that bubble line. So when you see a clear line of bubbles coming down the river, essentially that's a food lane, which is a really good place to fish. Now, Mr. Hughes, who's in a little bit of a rush today, you can see has made his way quite a long way upstream, is creating rather a nice wake. And that's another thing with grayling fishing. Where Rob's walking up, he'll be disturbing the bottom a little bit. And actually, what you sometimes find is that the grayling will come in and they'll sit right below your feet and they'll eat what you're knocking off the bottom. All those little bugs and stuff that you're disturbing, the shrimps and the larvae, they'll be kind of just below him, eating in his vapor trail. So I'm just going to walk up and see if I can catch one right under his feet. Again, in that vapor trail that Mr. Hughes has been created, and this feels like a decent fish. There are some big grayling in here. And where the old Inspector Gadget landing net handle comes in very handy. Lovely river test grayling. Isn't he beautiful? Don't want to keep him out of the water too long. And off he goes. So on my cast I've got a drab fly and I've got a coloured fly. And interestingly, that one has taken the drab fly. It's almost got no colour in it at all. That fly has caught me an awful lot of fish this summer. So many, in fact, I think I ought to show you how to tie it. So one of the keys with grayling fishing is to get your flies down. Mounted on a size 14 jig hook, I've got a 3mm tungsten bead at the top. That's a disco bead, silver, and behind it, a 2mm plain tungsten bead. In total, that's 5 mils of tungsten. That really gets the fly down. Now I'm going to tie in the tail. The tail is Coq de Leon feather. Perfect tail material, just a little pinch of it. Now the next thing that goes in is the body of the fly, and that's made up of a peacock quill which has been stripped of all its feathers. Now fish eat this, so we have to make it resilient to the fish, and I'm going to use a resin which is cured by UV. So next part of the process is some dubbing. To imitate the blue-winged olive nymph, I'm going to put some really dark coloured dubbing around that second tungsten bead. The next step is to get some movement at the head of the fly. Take a CDC, a Calder canard feather, and just one more thing, a little bit more dubbing, just to keep those feathers pinned down to the head of the fly. And that fly is now ready for Hughesy to throw up a tree. Well, look, we're coming into the really good bit now. So off the back of this willow tree that's above us, and this run down this tree line here is usually full of fish. Now that doesn't mean they'll be here today. The other thing about grayling, of course, is they're wild fish. So, you know, they'll move around. They'll decide whether they want to feed today in shallow riffle or they might be sat in a deep hole. That's the reason we practice, is to find the water that they want to sit in.
But this lovely run here now, that just looks to me like it should have fish in it. Yep.
Oh, he's in.
That was quick.
Now that's a good fish.
Oh.
It's taken the dropper.
There we go.
Hey!
Got one. It's not that good, but it is.
You know.
But it is a fish. So let's have a little look.
Taken the bottom fly, the point fly. Pretty fish. Small dorsal fin, so that's a male fish.
There it goes. Bang. Gone. And where there's one, there could be more. That's a donkey. I don't want to lose this one.
This is what it's all about. This is the sharp end of competition grayling fishing for Mr. Hughes. That is a lovely fish. Oh, that's a big fish. That's a great big fish.
This is where I need Fordy's landing net.
Oh, that's a massive grayling. He's got it.
Got him. Let's have a little look. That's got to be the thick end of a pound.
Oh, I think it's a bit more than that.
It has.
The wonders of handling grayling. Now the great thing about this competition is that we don't need to measure that fish. I mean, bad news is it counts as one, the same as a 3-inch long one. So that is easily 35 centimetres, that fish.
Absolutely, what a stunner that is. Right. And off it goes.
Fish on. Oh, look at that. Where I knew there was a big fish, Mr. Hughes is in. Now, how big's this fella? Oh, that's staying deep. That's a good fish. Look at his little face, look. He's concentrating on everything.
Don't want to lose this one, I've just seen it.
You know, it's been great seeing him have a go at this. It's a completely alien method to somebody who spends most of their life fishing for carp. And I know Rob's good at certain areas of other bits of the sport. As I said, lure fishing and fishing a stick float. And I hope he's got, from what we've done this afternoon, enough to take into the match, because if he can hook a few fish like that and go through this process, we've got half a chance of getting some fish in the net, which is what it's all about.
This is the biggest grayling I've caught.
This could be your 2-pounder, Rob.
Yep, I've just seen it.
That's a hell of a fish.
Got you.
Yes! Oh, wow.
That's a good fish. That is a good fish. I think that might be 2.
Do you know, this place, the test, is special for a reason. And in that net, you've got one of the reasons why this place is so amazing. Because there aren't fish like that everywhere.
This programme is brought to you by Hunts Up High, when you want your flies to float, and down low when you need them to sink. This programme is brought to you by Hunts Dive Deep, tungsten mud designed to sink your leader and tip it fast.
So in this competition we're fishing 3 sessions, and before you get to fish you have to draw your peg. So last night it was off to Romsey Golf Club to pull out the pegs, and the 3 pegs that Hughesy and I will be fishing then are peg 12, peg 1, and tomorrow on Sunday we'll be fishing on peg 3.
So, beat 12.
12.
Home for the morning.
Yes.
Looks quite nice actually. First impressions, reasonable straight, bit of rushes. On the inside we've got a pace of water, but it's quite deep, then bends around to the left hand side up there, a little bit of shallow water on the one side. I'd be happy here. I would float fish this actually. I think there'd be the odd grayling.
Funnily enough, you're actually going to.
Oh.
The tactic that I showed you the other day, which was using the French leader, is obviously very successful in deep fast water.
Yep.
But here we've got quite a lot of sort of slacks down the near side, and what you tend to find is you get quite a lot of immature fish. In grayling fishing competitions we call them shot, and if you can catch a lot of them, you know, in this competition it's lovely to see fish like that 2-pounder you caught, but actually how long did it take you to land that?
Yeah. It's
know,
all about speed. It's wasping, isn't it? We're effectively effectively wasping. That was going to be my hope. If we can find somewhere where we've got lots of small fish down an edge somewhere, you've got more chance of catching them quicker.
So Hughesy, here we go then, our first go at competitive fly fishing. Now I suggest I'm going to work up this inside bank and I'm going to try and catch some small fish. I think what you should do is take your French leader and try out in the deep water out the back of those weeds. So just make your way gradually up the swim. We've got 280 metres of the peg, which is going to fly past in an hour and a half, let me tell you. But just gently make your way out and see if we can get a fish on the bank. We've got some interesting challenges ahead with the weather today, Mr. Hughes.
Just a little bit.
Because Storm Brian is coming. Good name for a storm, isn't it?
Brian?
Brian. He's a very naughty boy.
The rain's just about to come back again.
Here comes Brian. So what do you think of competitive fly fishing so far then, Hughesy?
Frustrating and wet. Very frustrating and very wet now.
We'll be all right as long as it doesn't rain harder.
What, like that? Good
Because
old
that
Brian.
will really make it quite difficult to find out where to go. Brian, what are you doing to us? I think someone's angered Brian.
At least it's not raining too hard.
At least it's not raining too hard.
Could be worse. If it was raining, it wouldn't be pleasant.
No,
this.
wouldn't be fun. Well, we're already 50 minutes into our first session and we haven't caught a fish, and I'm starting to get really worried. I can report that the anglers fishing in peg 13 above us have had 1 fish. I know how many grayling there are in this stretch of river, and let me tell you, if they've only had one, we're not doing too badly. It's one of the, well, we're doing awfully because we haven't had anything, but Hughes had 2 chances. He's certainly hooked at least 1 fish. I haven't felt like I've had any chances at all yet. Very frustrating. Now, I do feel for my Spanish colleagues, our controllers, who are going to have to go into the water that we're fishing after us. So that's the way this match works. 3-hour session split in half. They've never fished a chalk stream before, and they must be looking at this and wondering what on earth all the fuss is about. It doesn't usually fish like this though, I can promise you. We're in at last. Nice grayling. Big fish. Oh! Now, to me, that's a clear indication that they're not feeding properly, because I've got big, sharp hooks on, and that fish was an ever such a gentle take. I had him on, he came up and took the top dropper, twisted and turned in the current, and then was off. And when they're like that, you know, grayling, if they're on, they're on. So frustrating.
Got one.
Rob's got one.
Yep.
Fantastic. Hughes has got a fish.
There we go. Got one. Embarrassment over. There it is. A grayling. You absolute beauty.
Well done, teammate. I love it. We've still got 20 minutes left. I've lost a fish. Hughes has lost a couple. We've got 1 fish. We're on the scoreboard, people. That's the important thing. We are on the scoreboard.
Well, this was the spot just down here, and it is the most obscure spot. You just wouldn't expect there to be an obvious grayling pod down here, but I just thought, you know what, I'm going to try everywhere. The main places aren't working, so we're going to real weird ones, and it was right in the margins down here, just underneath the tip, fishing really heavy just to get that bait right down to the bottom, as we found the other day. And I think if there was another one there, I'd have caught it by now. Well, that's it, finish. And 1 fish to rescue in the last 10 minutes, and that has been an absolute grueler.
Well, that's our session over with Hughesy. I'm so chuffed you got that fish. Gutted we lost a couple, but it's really hard. Juan and Jesus are in the river now. They've never seen a chalk stream before.
No.
I feel for them a little bit because it doesn't usually look like this.
Absolutely.
The important thing is 2 things actually. 1, we are on the scoreboard.
Yes.
Which is really important. And that's down to you, so well done. And 2, I think we've learned a bit for this afternoon.
Yes.
We're fishing very different water later on.
Yeah.
You know, right down the other end, maybe because it's right down the other end and it's a bit faster, it might be clearer. That's my hope.
Yeah, could well be.
This is horrible.
Well, you know, we can only judge ourselves against our peers. We don't know what else has gone on, and this stretch's water is similar to the one that's above, and sort of similar to the one that's below. And we know that the guys above had 1 fish, didn't they?
Yeah.
So we've had 1 fish, so we've matched them. We've had 4 bites. But the other thing that's noticeable is that the change, really either a change in peg or alternatively a change in tactic, has brought the bites on.
The other thing with this is, I mean, you know, you are new at this.
Yeah.
Are you enjoying yourself?
I think at the moment it's going to be retrospectively enjoyable.
I like that phrase.
In that, you know, at the time it's so frustrating because you want to get that bite, and I'm uber competitive, and I look at that and think, all I want to do is get those 2 out the river and get back in now, and probably get it wrong again. But you know what I mean? Just got to try and prove yourself.
Yeah.
But at least we're not blanked.
Well, I have.
Yeah, well, it's a team effort. It's a team effort, isn't it?
We're controlling for Juan and Jesus. Jesus is fishing a dry fly. Juan has caught a grayling. First grayling. So Rob's going to measure it because this is the potential tiebreaker. So nose to fork of tail. 33 centimetre grayling. It's interesting, big change in conditions. I mean, Brian's calmed down a little bit now. You end up with just those little changes making a big difference. So this is the afternoon session. We're down at the other end of the fishery, right down on peg A1. And our first job, Mr. Hughes and I, is to control these 2 fine Welsh anglers. We've got Lee Horde and Scott Wilson who are fishing in the peg first. And I can report that Lee has already had a couple of fish, and also Scott has landed one of those little tiny grayling, the ones we call shots. So the signs are that there are 1 or 2 fish in this piece of water. So it's already had 3 sets of anglers going through it. By the time Hughesy and I get in here, it will have been hammered. So it does make it slightly tricky, but you know, that's what competition fishing is all about. We get our chance, we've got to make the best of it. So it's our turn. This is our afternoon session just about to begin. 2 hours ahead. Hughesy's gone upstream because he's seen a couple of bits up there that he fancies. And I'm just going to try and make my way up the inside because Lee actually had a couple of fish from that inside line a little bit further up. But I don't think he fished this bit. So trying to find some fresh water when 3 sets of anglers have been through what's essentially quite a short beat is going to be tough. But let's give it a go. We are underway. Fish on. Oh, nice fish. See his tail, his fin come up. Look at that. Beauty. Absolute beauty. In he goes. Oh. Look at that in the autumn sunshine. Back he goes. Brilliant. Well, no more takes in since those first 2 fish. The light levels dropped massively about 10 or 15 minutes ago, and I really do find at this time of year that the grayling, the feed pattern is dictated to a lot by the light, the water conditions too, of course. There's an awful lot of colour in this river, as we've already established today. Still fancy that if you cover a fish, you've got half a chance of getting a take, but it does depend on those light levels. The sun's come back out again. Oh, that's a hit. That's a fish. 3. So yeah, as I just said, if you can cover a fish, you can get a take. Another fish. Oh no, it's taken the bottom one.
How many's that now?
4.
4. Excellent. Good old 40. That looks a good fish again. That's a grayling.
Nice fish.
Grayling?
Yeah.
I thought that was a trout when it came out of the water. That's fantastic.
It's a big fish.
Good fish.
2 minutes. 2 minutes left. Last 2 minutes. 5 fish in the can, just trying to make it 6. Little things count. You never know. We're certainly not in contention for anything. But hopefully we won't get the wooden spoon.
Oh. Probably less than a minute on the clock now, and that desperation, sort of when time's running out, you sort of try and speed up a little bit, and just these last few casts now, literally there'll be seconds left. Just hope I've walked into my spot now, just to try and get to another spot that I wasn't able to get to beforehand. Just to see, because you never know. That's it. Game over. Whew. That was a tough one.
Good effort, Mr. Hughes.
Good effort, Mr. Ford.
Coming through a pool that's been hammered all day. What have you had, 5?
4.
4, and I've had 6.
I did have
5, 6.
I did have 5, but
5.
one fell off in the air, sadly.
So coming through a pool like this that's been hammered all day and getting 9 fish out of it between us, let me tell you, in comp water like this is not a bad effort. This has not been easy.
No.
So mate, well done.
Cool.
Today has been a very, very hard day. The weather, Brian,
Yes.
not a big fan of
Not
Brian,
a
to
fan.
be honest.
No.
So Brian
No.
hopefully will have gone tomorrow.
Yes.
And people, we've now got to do it all again.
This programme is brought to you by Hunt's Fluff Dust, designed to keep dry flies on the surface for longer. This programme is brought to you by Hunt's Slime and Grime, super absorbent beads to remove moisture from your favourite fly.
Well, it's the morning of the second day here in the Broadlands Grayling Classic, and I'm very pleased to report that Brian has disappeared. The sun is shining and it's a glorious day. Hughesy is downstream. He's actually controlling the anglers that we're fishing with today. We're fishing second up in the river, so I'll be wandering down to find him in a few minutes' time. But before then, I've had a little chat with Howard Croston. Now, Howard is a member of the England Rivers World Team. He fishes in World Championships for his country. And we've been talking about why fishing pegged competitions is so important for the competition scene here in the UK.
I think just basically any pegs practice you can get is always an advantage. The main teams we compete against, the Czechs, the French, the Spanish, they habitually fish pegged comps, competition after competition. So they just become very, very polished at pegged comp fishing. So, and it's a skill that, you know, we generally speaking need to develop more over here. So I tend to fish any of the pegged comps that come up in the calendar, even friendlies like this one. There should be more, really. There's probably 3 or 4 that you could sort of fish in a year. When if you put that into context, some of the Czechs are fishing 17, 18 pegged comps in a year. If you have a roving match and you end up in a section of water you're not comfortable with, or you're not comfortable with the techniques required to fish it, you can just move camp and default to a comfortable method for yourself. With peg fishing, you've got to fish what you've got. We haven't got a brilliant beat this morning. You know, it's a long, deep canal type section, but it's what we've got. So we've got to fish it. So that's why fishing peg comps helps when you come to fish a World or a Europeans. Quite often World and European Championships are won or lost by 1 or 2 fish per session. So if you can get 1 or 2 extra fish out of a hard beat, and then the people who follow you don't get those extra fish, you finish higher up the pack. So catching 1 or 2 fish is as important as catching 30 out of a really good piece of water when it comes to World or Europeans quite often. So pegged matches are the way to go.
Well, it's the only opportunity we've got to do it, Andy. Obviously, we're a syndicate fishery until the middle of October, and then we've got 2 weeks grace before the course fishing starts. Historically, we always held a qualifier here during that period. To be fair, I got a little bit fed up with the bureaucracy and the rubbish that goes with it. So we wanted to, set up a fun, friendly comp for all and sundry, internationals and novices alike, just to get everyone together. It's been well received. Everyone's had good things to say about it. The river's in fine fettle. Weather's been a bit wild. But the fish are coming out. There's a lot of fish. It's some fantastic water. It's very, very technical water as well, which I think you guys find exciting. It's not all 2 foot deep and the same. There's big pots, there's fast runs, there's dips, there's a lot of topography of the riverbed, and you've really got to think about where the fish are going to be and fish, effectively to catch them. Really nice to get so many people together that really, really appreciate the river for what it is and enjoy it as a challenge. That was our intention when we set the fishing up here at Broadlands, was to create, challenging fly fishing for fly fishermen, and to get so many people that really, really appreciate it and get it in one place all together is fantastic.
It's just a good day's fishing. It's a good fun. Get to meet lots of friends. Most people here I know, and it's just a great day, great competition. I love the test. So many fish in here. It's unbelievable.
Just a crack of everyone being here. They're just a great team, great guys. Yeah, the river's fantastic. You wouldn't miss it, would you? Come here to fish it for a couple of days.
To me, it's social. Yeah. I didn't join it. I brought this guy with me who's never. This is his 3rd time on a river doing fly fishing.
Yeah, it's been good. We've learnt a few new methods on Monday, sort of a crash course into it, and it's been good.
I think competitions are about learning. I come here to learn. I fish. I like watching other fishermen. Many people don't particularly enjoy the controlling part, but I do like the controlling, because when do you ever get to stand on the bank for a couple of hours and watch someone else fish? It doesn't happen very often, and I think it's competing and the qualifiers that have really propelled our fishing massively over the last few years. That's where you really learn.
It's about having fun. That's all it's about, really. We've got a group of people wanting to fish, bring them together, have lots of fun, catch some fish, and just have a chat. Yeah, I think that's the great thing about it. We've got full internationals here. We've got guys that haven't picked up nymph rods before. It's brilliant. That's what makes it.
So there's Ben Bangham, an England international angler. Hello, Mr. Bangham. Who is fishing a couple of pegs up from us. So he's in the first session. He's had 13 fish in this session, so there's clearly a few grayling here, a couple of decent sized fish and some little ones as well. Now, Ben wasn't even supposed to be fishing today, but a couple of people didn't show, and he's had to force himself to get into the river test and try and catch some grayling. This bloke is an awesome angler, and actually I don't think he'd be too disappointed really, because he's got half a chance of doing a good job here, I think. So Dick, how's Adam doing?
He's only had 2. Conditions are really, really tough, as you can see from the wind. And there's a lot of weed coming down, because we're the first 2 beats. Second beat, we get everyone else's weed getting washed down. And unfortunately, I'm fishing in a minute. So
yeah, we've got to go into peg 1 in a minute, and we're dancing. Yeah,
lucky you.
What is it you like about these competitions, Dick?
It's relaxation for me. Oops.
Relaxation, you say?
Yes.
Do you think he might have just missed a bite?
I think he might have done.
Well, I've made my way up to find Mr. Hughes, who's been controlling this morning. How's it going so far, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. It's been a bit quiet. Conditions very different from yesterday, obviously. Yeah. But Max caught 3, just little shots up at the top end. He's had a good wander down and back up again, not caught anything, and his partner hasn't had anything at all yet. They had a bit of a tough day yesterday as well. Yeah, they were hopeful of a few fish, and I thought when he went into the top end straight away he was going to catch quite a lot of fish up there. One within the first 5 minutes, great sign, but then it's just died. So he's had a wander down, gone back up there. Interesting, the controlling side of things. I actually prefer going second and first, and maybe that's because I'm a novice at this, but it gives me the opportunity of spending a little bit more time looking at the river. So controlling has a double benefit. One, you can see what people are doing, but two, it gives you more chance of watching and looking.
Second day, what we have to examine is what we learned yesterday.
Yes.
So I've made a few changes. Well,
waterproofs are important.
See, Brian's gone. Hopefully, he won't be coming back. I haven't seen him this morning. No. But a few tactical changes, or certainly sort of slight alterations. I learned a lot yesterday from fishing down there about weight of flies. There's still an awful lot of colour in the river. Yeah. We know that this stretch holds some big fish. We're 2 pegs up from where we fished yesterday, and I've gone with slightly different tactics. I can't say I'm massively in favour of what I've gone with because I've actually tied up some flies I don't like using. Right. But with the river this colour, I think it's the way to go. And we've seen Tom hunt already this morning catching fish, and I know what he's caught on. Right. He's caught on one of these, which is called a squirmy. Yep. And it's basically designed and tied to look like a worm.
It's big, isn't it?
It is big. 4 mil bead on it. I've got 2 of those on my cast. And also a point flight, which is heavy. So in terms of the amount of tungsten I've got there, 4, 8, and that's 6. So that's 14 mil of tungsten on my cast. It's a lot.
Now, because you're doing that, I'm actually going the opposite way around now because we need to cover all bases. And also the sort of water that you'll fish with that is going to be different to the water that I'm going to fish. So I've gone for 2 different methods. I've got a set of string of mackerel feathers on this one. So I've got 3 on today. I'm going to be a bit brave. I went with 2 yesterday. I've got 3 today. But I've got my favourite, just red-tipped black fly on the deck. Reasonable bit of weight to get it down. And then I've got a slightly drabber one with a flash of purple, just a little bit above it. So I'm going to be fishing those 2 down on the bottom. And you'll notice that this one is only 6-8 inches off the deck as well, with a 3-inch drop. So I've got one on the deck and one just off the deck. So they're going to be quite low. And then a little bit higher up, I've got something quite visible that's going to be higher in the water. That's pink. And I'm hopeful there's a bit of body in that as well. So, you know, light fly, as it's running through, if there's anything higher up in the water on a day like today, that might pick up.
So the other thing that I find really interesting is that you had a few problems with your presentation yesterday. You've gone away and you've thought about this a lot, and I know you always think about your fishing. But you've actually, well, you thought you'd invented something. It's been done before, but this is a Hughesy twist. The Hughesy bung has been born. Have a look at this, people.
Well, I didn't know what a bung was, first and foremost. So what I was doing yesterday was effectively trying to stick float fish with a fly underneath a makeshift float. And the makeshift float wasn't big enough. It was pulling it down and needed a lot of weight on the hook to get it down through the water quickly. So I've come up with this. And this is basically a piece of black zig foam. And all I've done is I put a baiting needle through the middle of it, pulled it through, and then popped a carp fishing hair stop on the end of it, and it's black so it shows up in the silver water with a nice bright yellow big hair stop so I can see it if it's in the darker water as well. 10-pound fluorocarbon just above it, and the idea is that there's 3 foot of that, so if I need to adjust the depth I can do that really quickly without having to break anything down, because that was one of the other things yesterday. You know, you fish in a 2-foot bit and then you're in a 5-foot bit. So there's a lot of chopping and changing, so I need an adjustable float, so that's effectively it. Coming down the cast, and I've got
terminology now.
I've got a dropper which may be a little bit long, but I'm going to fish it like that on purpose. And I've got a little bit of different colour there. You'll see there's red, there's violet, and there's orange and black on that as well. Coming down to the bottom, I've put a shrimp pattern on, which is very, very heavy. I think you said there's tungsten in this one.
Yeah, it's a tungsten jig back. The whole body is made of tungsten. It's really dense and they sink like a stone.
Yeah, so that's it. And yesterday was 5 grayling. I'm going to set myself a target today. The weather's a lot better. I'm going to set myself a target of 10.
10.
No point setting an achievable target. If you set yourself an achievable target, then it's not a target, is it?
Great stuff.
Let's aim high.
Let's aim high.
So,
it'll be interesting to see what happens, and I'm very excited at the birth of a new thing, the Hughesy bung. You'll remember where you were when you saw this invented, people. Exciting times.
This programme is brought to you by Hunt's Floatants. Shake it to dry big flies or brush it on to keep small flies floating for longer. This programme is brought to you by Hunt's Original Mud, designed to degrease leaders and tippet and reduce flash, gets you closer to spooky fish.
So here we go then, session 3. I'm just going to go into this bit with those 3 heavy flies and see what's around. Rob's fishing a bit further up, divide and conquer. Also, the bonus of this is peace and quiet. Keep out of Hughes' way for a bit, see what happens. Wish me luck, people. Let's try this run down here. You can see where all the water's broken around where my flies are going through at the moment. That sort of boiling pattern on the top of the water, just there where the flies have gone in. What that tells you is that obviously there's stuff under the water. And where there's stuff under the water, like weed beds, etc., there are very often fish. They've got to live somewhere, haven't they? Fish on. So there's my first fish of the session. It's taken that squirmy worm, the thing with the red on it. It looks like a brandling or a worm going in. There he is, beautiful river test grayling, slipping back. One of the things that John Hall said about this piece of river is that it's very technical. And by that he means there's lots of different water to fish. Now, you don't just randomly attack a piece of water, you actually have to try and break it down into its various different components. And one of the interesting things that you have to do with this is basically make your way to cover as much of the water as you possibly can. So what I'm trying to do is start on this side, work my way across and back again. Try and cover as much of that as I possibly can. We've only got 2 hours. There's a bit down there I want to fish in a minute too, so you can't afford to hang about. And pretty much what you do is you do the same thing over and over again. So you cast upstream, you let your flies drop to the bottom, cover that channel, let that rig go all the way past you. If you get any indications like that, that was weed, you strike at it, but it's also useful to let it go behind you because the flies will then come up in the water at the end of your cast, and sometimes that rise of the flies, a fish will come and take. Then I'll take a couple of steps forward, cast again and cover another bit of water, and so on. And that's pretty much the routine all the way through. Fish. Not sure this is the right species, but that was interesting. That fly was right past me then. This might be a trout. Feels like a big fish. Oh no, it's not. It's a grayling. In fact, I've got a nasty feeling. Oh, I might have a double hookup. Now what's happened there, bizarrely, is I've hooked a big trout, huge great big trout that took my point fly, and as I'm playing the trout, the squirmy is waving around in the water and I felt a separate clang and a second fish has come and it's taken the taken the middle dropper. Amazing, really. Done me a favour actually, because the trout then got off so I didn't have to mess about landing it, and I've got my second fish on the score sheet. Brilliant. Hughesy though seems to be in a bit of a tangle. I don't know what's going on down there. He's out the river, which is a bit of a worry. I think he's having to reset up his kit again. Maybe the Hughesy bung has spangled. Got to get him back in the river. Just making my way up, and I've just seen a couple of little fish rising in the pool above. Don't want to put a dry fly on. I don't think they're on dries. There is some stuff hatching, but what I'm going to just try and do is run a tiny little fly underneath the float. Just to make it get down, I've got some tungsten mud, which is basically mud mixed up with tungsten powder, I think. I'm not sure how it's made, but anyway, you put that on your line, and it just makes the line sink really fast, so you get the fly down really quickly. Now the other advantage of it is it also takes a bit of the shine off the line, especially on a bright sunny day like today. You can't do too much to disguise what you're using, so we'll see if this works. I'm just after this is kind of, I haven't had another fish out of there since that second one, so I'm just going to try and get a couple of smaller fish, see if I can get a little bit of a score on the board. Hughes is now back in the water, so we're back in the game.
Oh, this is where I need my long landing net. Oh, please don't come off. There we go, number 2. Oh, and that's one of the things with these things, you never ever give up. And I just threw one up the tree there and I thought, that's it now. It's about the time to call it a day. But there's always a chance, isn't there? Keep trying. Where there's 2, there might be more.
Have you had one?
2.
2? What, shots
2.
or?
Sorry?
Shots or proper
one shot and one proper one.
Good lad.
So you know,
Come on, Hughesy,
the idea was to try and find a little pocket, and I thought they might be in there, but they're not. Max suggested this little gravel as well. I said, why didn't you stand and have a go here? So
Well
fair
done.
play. And yeah, first and second cast, and
Team on the move, you see. Good lad. I've had a go down there, it's horrible, too much colour, too much weed, can't see the channels.
that colour might have been me nearly falling in.
Right, I'm going to go back in where I started, unless you want me to run the big nasties through to see if there's one sat there.
You can try if you want.
Let's just dive in here then. So where do you reckon they are, in the deep off the back of the gravel? Oh,
That's weed. Yeah, to go further over and come down a little bit. If you run it through just a couple of times, you'll get one straight away if there's one there.
in.
Are you? Good lad.
Grayling. What's that taken? Hold on. It's taken the point fly.
Is it?
Right, chaps?
What colour's that?
It's got a red tag on it. Silver with a red tag. How long we got, guys? How long? Half an hour left. Wow. Awesome. Thought we had a bit less than that. That's all right.
We'll go for our 10, mate. How many are we on now?
I've got 3, you've got 2. I'd say that's 5.
I'd reckon that's probably 5. Halfway there. If you think you want to go back up to that other one, then feel free. Not
Yeah,
pushing you
I
out
think
the
I'll
peg,
just, what I'll do is I'll have a couple of minutes here. I don't want to steal your fish. If you're going to present the same way as I am, so
Mate.
heavy, then I'll stop fishing this and go up there and try where I started off the end of that metal. How long? How long? Well, 10 minutes to go. I've just dropped back into the same bit that I started in, and amazingly, I've had a fish in exactly the same spot. How about that? Incredible. They're all the same size today. First one was a little bit bigger maybe, but that's fish number 4. Back he goes. 10 minutes left, 4 fish. Well, just got to keep the faith and hope there's 1 or 2 more left. One more. Come on, where are you? One more. When you get down towards the sharp end of a match like this, 5 minutes left, you just never know what 1 more fish will mean. So you've just got to keep fighting into the very last second. Oh, weed. You just never know. It's what Howard was saying earlier on about just 1 more fish. It's in big matches, it's not necessarily catching 30 that will do it. It's catching that one in the place that matters, at the time that matters. It can be the difference between first, second, third, or in our case, 21st, second or third. So there we go, the end of our match. 4 fish for me in the 2 hours. I think I've left 1 or 2 in there, to be honest, but fished a lot better today than I did yesterday morning. Just want to carry on now, really. But now it's time to see how Mr. Hughes has fared in his last bit down there. Wander back and see who's won the Broadlands Grayling Classic. Well, I reckon we've not done too badly there, Hughesy. I'll tell you what I'm really pleased to have seen is you've had a real struggle for the opening bit of that match. Probably the first hour you'd wish you'd never been fishing in your life after the way that went. But what you've done is what this sort of fishing is all about. You've fought for every last second.
Absolutely.
And then you've got down there, you've dropped into a little hole, you've had 2 fish. You know, it's it's worth the fight.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? You know, you never ever give up. But you know, when you look at other things like, let's get out, let's have a look where else is fish. I thought there'd be fish down there. Straight away, first put in, great fish.
Yep.
And then another one afterwards, you've come in as well, stuck something else through it, caught 1, 2. You know, 3 fish, that's doubled our tally.
Yep.
Just finding that one spot has doubled our tally in, what, 10 minutes?
4 fish in the last half hour we've had.
Yeah. Never ever give up. Num cum ridono.
Whatever that means.
That's never give up. 40, it's been great.
Right, so on to the results. So we had a team pull out yesterday morning, which left us in quite a quandary. So myself and Adam stepped in to take one for the team, and we actually went and won it. So everything goes down a rank. We're going to take the shield, but all the prizes shift down a rank because we don't need the prizes.
With the team that wins comes a £500 donation to a charity, and in March next year Julian from Wet Your Knot is going to India to do a tuk-tuk, so we're going to give our £500 to your charity for India. There you go.
This programme is brought to you by Hunt's Original, fishing accessories designed to enhance your presentation.